I think what ended up happening is women ended up having to do double the work. So it was now expected that women were going to cook and clean and, you know, figure out the child rearing, figure out the dinner menu, figure out all of these things, keep the house clean, and still look sexy for her husband, and at the same time have to then wake up the next morning and go out to work and do it all over again. Beautiful people, welcome back to the channel. My name is Felicia and this is The Feminine Fancy. In today's video, I really want to, I'm not gonna go like, this isn't gonna be a super deep dive. This is just going to be a look into the rise and fall of the girl boss movement. I have a lot of thoughts on this. I have thought about it a lot. I've talked about it a lot, like in my everyday life, and I feel like it's something that I think we can see really clearly in society right now, or okay, I feel like I can see it really clearly in society right now. I'm seeing a rise in content that is leaning more traditional, a rise in content that is leaning more towards encouraging women to not overwork themselves and things like that. And I just wanna take a second to talk about like the images in media that we used to see or that we still see, and how that affected and caused us to feel like we had to pursue certain things and pursue certain avenues without taking into consideration other options that we might have had. Just talk about all of that and just really the rise and fall of the movement, because I feel like when I was growing up, it was such a big thing. It was such a big deal to be a girl boss, to break a glass ceiling, to be a CEO, and those things are amazing. Actually, I want to preface all this by saying, like, I firmly believe that women do need to be in spaces, in rooms, in places where decisions are being made about us, about our bodies, about, you know, everything. However, I think it's important to acknowledge that not everything is for everyone, and I think we were really pushed this narrative that like all women should fall into that very go-getter mentality, when not all of us operate that way. And so I want to talk about that today and just kind of give my 2 cents and discuss like why I think that it has shifted and changed quite a bit. So that is what we're talking about in today's video. If you are interested in this topic, if you like my channel, if you've had a minute to look around, then please hit the red subscribe button and hit the like button. You guys did a really good job, I will say, on the last video with the likes. Thank you so much. Like I said, if you like the video, then why wouldn't you give it a thumbs up? It just makes sense. So please give this video a thumbs up if you're interested in these topics about womanhood and femininity and all of that stuff. Okay, so when I was growing up, I feel like I was really pushed the narrative of that, like, you can do anything, go for your goals, and break the glass ceilings, and you know, you can be a CEO, you can be all of these things. And that's true, and that's amazing, and that's wonderful. But I have to say, like, I started to feel very bad about myself as I got older, because I felt like I wasn't achieving enough. Like it never felt like enough. Someone who is naturally, I lean more artistic, I take a little bit more time with things. My passions lie in art and in creating, in movement, in video. Like, my passions don't necessarily lie where a society would deem valuable. I started to feel really bad about myself at a really young age for not being the best of the best at everything that I did. That just kind of continued to follow me throughout my life. I remember when I did pageants, it was a really big thing to mention how you wanted to change the world, break glass ceiling, be the first woman, ... And again, all of those things are amazing and I love them. But it was a really big deal. Like, I remember a lot of the girls that I did pageants with, we had to do something called personal introduction for the pageants that I did. And in your personal introduction, you had to talk about who you were, where you saw yourself, where you saw your life going, and things like that. And there was so much mention of glass ceilings. I don't know if you guys know this, in the pageant world, talking about breaking a glass ceiling and being a woman who was going to change the world was a very big deal in pageantry when I was growing up. I would always kind of feel like I had to like make something up, because the truth was that like I wanted to dance, I wanted to perform, but I didn't feel like that was a good enough answer. Like, I didn't feel like that was respected enough. And I think generally speaking, like, the arts aren't super respected in our society. If you look at schools and education, arts are always the first thing that they cut when they need to save money. And I remember the emphasis on women in STEM becoming super, super important. And it became as though girls who were in STEM and girls who were pursuing technology, pursuing science and math, they were taken more seriously in terms of like what they were pursuing with their life, as opposed to someone like me who I don't think I was taken super seriously because I wanted to perform, and that's where my passions lie. There was this overarching theme of you should be trying to do something that's going to change the world, and there is this way of looking at certain things that you can pursue and that you can do that will change the world, and looking at other things as just like a cute hobby or like a fun thing to do. I feel like we saw this represented in media a lot too. I remember when the show Girl Boss came out in 2016 or 2017, something like that, and it was about the woman who started Nasty Gal, which since, like, I don't know if it's as successful as it was in the beginning. Her trials and tribulations of being an early 20s, mid 20s woman trying to like start her own brand, and the show was called Girl Boss. And then I also think about, when I was thinking about examples for this video, I also think about that movie The Intern that stars my queen, Anne Hathaway. And in it, she runs a clothing brand as well. And Robert De Niro is like an elderly, he's not elderly, he's like maybe in his 60s or 70s, and he needs a job, so he starts working as an intern at her company. And it's really, that movie's really interesting because it really showcases like how the world sees women bosses, right? Like, she's so successful, she's doing a great job, she's awesome, she's got a beautiful family. Her husband ends up cheating on her. Sorry, spoiler if you haven't seen it. Her husband cheats, but it's been out for like 10 years, so. Her husband cheats on her. It feels emasculated because of her success. And all of these like stereotypes that go along with being a girl boss, being a woman boss, being a woman who's like doing all this amazing stuff. And if you even take like real people, not movies, not TV, but if you even take, you know, people like the Kardashians, right? There is a way in which people will go to the ends of the earth to defend the Kardashians and their behavior, or, you know, their appropriation or whatever, by saying like, well, they're just good business women. Like, they're just good business women. So there is this element in our society of looking at women as being more worthy when you are a good businesswoman or when you are a girl boss. And I think that has sustained for quite some time. And it feels like once the pandemic hit, things started to shift, right? Like, we saw an uptick in content surrounding like traditional femininity, which is when my content got really popular. That's when other creators on the platform got very popular. And we started to really dive feet first, head first, whatever, into this idea behind like wanting to live a slower life. And it's almost like it wasn't even thought to be an option for us before. I think that's why like the homemaking content got really popular at that point, and the stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home wife, homemaker type of content really popped off, because I think as we were at home and we were not working, it was enlightening to look at these other women who are living a completely polar opposite life than maybe we've seen or we've been exposed to, and be like, oh, that's an option? Overall, I just think that women got really fed up. Like, I think women became very fed up, and we became very aware of how much we had begun as women in this society to ignore our bodies, to ignore our rhythms, and to just blend into a patriarchal society and what that means. And many of us now know that what that means is we are working, if we're working full-time jobs, we are working on a cycle that is based off of a man's cycle. We're finding out that like other countries have paid days off for the week of their menstrual cycle. We're learning all of these things, and we're just like, this isn't adding up. Like, this isn't making sense. We now live in a society where you have to be a 2-income household in order to afford groceries, in order to afford a home, in order to afford to have kids, right? If you're not a part of like a certain if you're not in a certain economic bracket, you do have to be a 2-income household in order to live life in a certain way. So we're coming to these realizations and we're just like, oh, this is interesting. This is interesting. So yeah, I think the pandemic had a lot to do with that. And then I think women also started to realize that, you know, this idea of things being 50-50 in a household, if you are, you know, married with a spouse, or if you live with a boyfriend or whatever, if you have someone that you live with, whatever your situation is, this idea of things being 50-50 is pretty false. Like, I won't blanket statement because I know everybody's home life is different, but when you think about the fact that like in the home, women typically do majority of the work, right? Like we're cooking, we're cleaning, we're taking care of the kids, etc., etc. And on top of that, we're working. It really becomes this unbalanced thing where we're like, oh, well, I thought that if I girl bossed and like worked and did what I was told to do, this home life would then be equal, right? Like we would then be able to both do the work outside and both do the work inside. And I don't think that that really ended up happening. I think what ended up happening is women ended up having to do double the work. So it was now expected that women were going to cook and clean and, you know, figure out the child rearing, figure out the dinner menu, figure out all these things, keep the house clean, and still look sexy for her husband, and at the same time have to then wake up the next morning and go out to work and do it all over again. And I just think that like, and I'm sure there are women who like kill it and do a great job, but I just think the idea behind women, you know, being girl bosses, breaking glass ceilings, no one ever really talked about what that would look like in your home life. No one ever talked about like what that might cause in your home life when you're not at work. Like when you're not girl bossing and you're not like doing the thing in your office, no one really talked about like what that would look like at home. And I think a lot of women started to realize that like the reality of what that looked like at home wasn't what they wanted or wasn't what they were promised. And I want to circle back to my point about women learning more about their bodies. Like I said in my video about healing my body naturally, I have seen so much content lately on women just discussing how we've learned about our bodies so much more lately, and there's much more information out there now about how to take care of your body as a woman that really wasn't out there before. They don't teach you this in school. Like if you don't know this on your own, you're just kind of like, you know, left to figure it out. And I think as women started doing more research, and as platforms like TikTok and YouTube, but primarily TikTok, have become so large and people are just freely sharing more information, women have been like, oh, what? The amount of people who have no idea how long their cycle is, who have no idea when they're ovulating, who have no idea like anything about their bodies is alarming and concerning. And it's because we're not taught about our bodies. And if we were taught about our bodies, we would understand why there are times during the month where like we just have absolutely no energy to go into work. We have absolutely no energy to go, you know, sit in an office for 8 hours and do, you know, do whatever we're supposed to do, whatever like somewhat monotonous thing we have to do. And we have no idea why there are other times of the month where we're super excited and jazzed and like ready to get work done and all and super productive. And it's because of these different phases in your cycle. But many of us don't know that. And so we're living this life completely like dazed and confused, not understanding the fact that like our bodies and our cycles are different from men's, but we're encouraged to live a life that is parallel and that mirrors what a man's life looks like. And I think that element of the girl bossing, of the glass ceiling breaking, is not discussed enough, nearly enough. And you have women who are more likely to have autoimmune diseases. We have a system with a lot of moving parts. And so our experience in life is vastly different to a man's experience just on a weekly basis. And I just think that a lot of women came to realize like, oh, I understand my body now and it doesn't this doesn't make sense. Another issue with the girl boss movement was that it didn't take intersectionality into account. It didn't take into account that my experience as a Black woman in a corporate office might be different from the experience of a non-Black, non-POC woman in a corporate office. So there are things in the workplace environment that I will have to deal with that other women won't have to deal with. And I don't think that the girl boss movement brought that up. As a Black woman in America, and I've never really spoken about this at length. I think I had one video about homemaking and being a Black homemaker or whatever, but as a Black woman in America specifically, I feel as though staying at home is my right. Like, for me, it's almost a way of honoring my female ancestors, right? Who like didn't get the opportunity, who were slaves, who had to work in the fields, who were abused. Like, I view this as the most radical thing that I could possibly do. I think that's why you do see a lot of, like, you see a lot of femininity content in general, but I feel like on YouTube it became really popular in the Black community and amongst Black women. And I think that is because, like, there is this inherent desire for rest that we have that I don't even think it can be put into words. I don't think that there are words that can really describe the desire for rest, the desire for the soft life that we have. I don't think it's as simple as, oh, I just want to take bubble baths, I just want to relax, I just want to do nothing. Like, that's not the case. I think that for many women of color, it's an act of resistance. Like, and there's actually a really wonderful account that I follow called the Nap Ministry. I will link it down below if you guys are interested in this sort of discussion. She talks about believing that rest is a form of resistance and a form of reparation, and I fully agree, just because of my own history within this country, and not even within this country, within other countries as well. You know, you guys know that my mom's from Panama, my grandparents are from Barbados. Like, they didn't just end up there. For me, this sort of soft life, this femininity, all of these things, for me, like, it is an act of resistance. The girl boss movement, I don't think even bothered to take into account the experiences of women of color, of Black women, of people who are differently abled. Like, I don't think it took into account anything. It was just kind of like, yeah, you can do it, so do it. You can do it. If you can do it, do it. And it didn't take into account a lot of things. And so ultimately, I feel like, you know, to close out, I feel like we find ourselves now at this place, in this space of so many of us wanting to lean more into our femininity and lean more into a softer life and almost reject the girl boss movement. And I'm not here to tell you what to do. If you want to break glass ceilings, if that's where you want to put your focus, you do that. And I will be championing you, because there's so many women that I look up to who, if not for them, I would not be able to be sitting here today, right? Like, I want to make it clear that this is not me saying that, like, women need to sit back and do nothing. This is not me saying that. This is me saying that I think that there were and are inherent flaws within the girl boss movement, and that I think a lot of women are waking up to the realities of what that looks like versus what we were promised. We were kind of told that we could have it all. We could have the job, we could have the husband, we could have the kids, we could have the house, we could have everything, and it would all just work out. But my mom has always said, you can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time. And I think that, you know, with the girl boss movement, with this idea of breaking glass ceilings and changing the world, that has effects on other areas of your life. And that's just something that I think maybe needs to be discussed a little bit more. I don't know. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. I hope that you enjoyed this video. It was not super like intellectual, it was more so just like my thoughts and opinions. So I apologize about that. Normally I would try to have like articles and like, you know, things like that, but I just kind of wanted to like word vomit things up. So that's what we did. But if you like this video, please give it a like, leave a comment down below letting me know what you think and your opinions on the girl boss movement, where we're at today with all of it. You can find me on Instagram at _thefemininefancy_. You can also find me on my blog at thefemininefancy.com. I love you guys. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.